Welcome back. We continue talking about the politics of antagonism, political temperatures rising, party leaders posturing for national unity whilst their sidekicks beat drums of war. Now, before the break, Irungu Houghton directed us to Chapter 4 of the Constitution, Article 33 on freedom of expression. Let's put that up. It talks about every person having the right to freedom of expression, which includes freedom to seek, receive or impart information or ideas, freedom of artistic creativity, and academic freedom and freedom of scientific research. The right to freedom, however, does not extend to propaganda for war, incitement for violence, hate speech or advocacy of hatred that constitutes ethnic incitement, vilification, or other incitement to cause harm, or is based on any ground of discrimination specified or contemplation in Article 27(4). Every person shall respect the rights and reputation of others. Article 33, freedom of expression. All right. I wish we had so much more time for this, but we do have to take some final comments from each of my panelists. And even as they do so, I'm keen to hear from them on how they believe hate speech can become the exception rather than the norm. And I want to start with the Honorable Keter. But also, how do we change the culture and this is something that Martha Karua said, how do we have a culture shift in our political discourse where we can disagree as we respect and criticize, not insult one another? Honorable Keter, let me start with you.
Thank you, Higa. I can hear some echo behind me. I would like to say we need to find a way in which we are going to address the frustration of various leaders. Before we wait for them to come and express wherever they are, we need to find an amicable way in which we are going to address the frustration of various leaders. And different institutions, different people can take up that challenge and lead within. When I talk about leading within, I mean if we are actually organized around parties, let the party find a way in which they are going to address their own issues before it spill over to the entire country. Find a way in which they're going to ensure that party frustrations do not spill over to the country and affect even the way we do our own things.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry, we're going to have to keep it real brief. Priscilla, let me give you a parting short opportunity. Go ahead, briefly.
Thank you, Wahiga. I think in parting short, political hygiene, tolerance, respect for special interest groups. If you saw in Article 33, the grounds for discrimination in Article 27 include women, the elderly, the person with disability. I think we should just have no-go areas. We practice politics, but we don't go to pillars that can affect our society. And we are hoping to see more respect for the special interest groups. Inclusion, including the 30% rule for the minorities in all of our counties. It's work in progress. The commissions, like my own and the NCIC, we have our work cut out. We just should do what we need to do. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Reverend Dr. Kobia, I apologize for rushing you, but please make it brief. What is your last word?
Well, thank you. First of all, I just want to give assurance to Agnes that NCIC has begun to decentralize and we are beginning to establish ourselves in the regions. So we are working on that. Secondly, I wanted to say that as NCIC at the moment, and to try to contribute to a situation where towards 2022, we are going to come up with what I call values, principles, and guidelines to ensure the condition during and to elections. This is where we are concentrating on, and we are going to on our national anthem on the Constitution and Chapter 6. And finally, my parting shot is that we have a great country, and what we need to do is to join hands, work together, and make it even greater.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Reverend Dr. Kobia. Agnes, what's your final word on this, please?
I think maybe for me would be, I'd love to see the full extent of the law take place. Ngeno himself has been arrested 3 times. Even if he had a 3-strike system, he has already expended all of his chances. I think when we read Article 33, what Irungu has brought up in line also together with Section 13 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act, we have sufficient basis to charge and prosecute people. And maybe let's start seeing those heads roll. I think we've used this term, and now it has become a very cliche term, but I'd like to see prosecution and the full extent of the law dealt against people who are speaking against other communities. And maybe lastly for me, Wahiga, I'd like to remind the youth that whenever politicians are calling and beating the drums of war, that they need you as the manpower, as the bodies to go out there to fight. So I'd like to ask all the young people to resist and not to answer such calls. Thank you, Wahiga.
Agnes, that's a valid final point you've made there. Thank you for that. And Irungu, how are you going to wrap this up?
So Wahiga, I think we'll wait and see. I think we have cause to be alarmed by this week. We have to wait and see whether the season that tears us apart is upon us again. If it is the case, then I think Kenyans will have to be wise. They will have to be brave. And I think taking the point by Agnes, we will have to disassociate ourselves from those that have tried to divide us. Demagogic and divisive language destroys nations. Whether, make America great again, or India or Brazil, is actually code for keep America white, keep Brazil rich, and keep India in the hands of the Hindus. We know that internationally, and in Kenya, we have to make sure that we uphold a national framework. And the danger is very real. We've had over 2,500 violent conflicts since Wagala in 1985. But I would like to leave us with a hopeful comment, which is that essentially, for every single violent crime or any violent conflict in our history, there have been people who have walked in the shadows, rebuilding the country and rebuilding those communities. People like Salah Farah, the Muslim cleric who stood in front of Muslims on a bus heading from Garissa to protect it. But I think lastly, there are 3 things that we can do. One is deepen devolution, invest in a whole of society approach. It is interesting as we begin to flatten the curve that this is beginning to happen. We need to pull back and push for a national framework that allows for unity and cohesion. And then thirdly, apply the law fully for all cases that we see of hate speech and violence. And lastly,
oh my goodness,
the political parties decisively take this on?
Okay, I thought we had lost you there, Irungu, but you came back on. Thank you so much for that and for leaving us with those 3 final points. That was Irungu Houghton, Executive Director, Amnesty International Kenya, Agnes Ibara, a youth leader. We also had Dr. Reverend Samuel Kobia, the chair of the NCIC, Priscilla Nyokabi, a commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission, and Gideon Keter, a nominated member of Parliament. Each of them giving their views on this topic, political temperatures rising, and concerns about some of the statements that have been ushered or said over the last few days. Let me read a tweet that has been posted by engineer Lazaro Kanyambok. Really been trying to send more than one tweet here saying the bigger picture should be that both camps, whether it's the president and the deputy presidents, should be reminded to respect institutions. And so that's a concern from one of our viewers tonight, or this morning rather. And Godfrey Omo saying, loose tongues will end the moment Kenyans will be treated equally. That's another view from one of our viewers. Of course, this is something that has got a lot of people sharing what they feel, but nevertheless concerned that as politicians mudsling each other, so to speak, it really shouldn't involve family members outside of that scope. And I think that's the view of many Kenyans this morning. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your thoughts. Remember, 22422 is the SMS line. Hashtag is Daybreak. I hand over now to, is it Willis? Or we have a workout first, I believe, an interesting one that will be coming up after this break. So if you want to get fit and start your morning on the right note, keep it Citizen TV. We'll be right back.